I know I've been on a Divorce Diaries rant for quite a while now, but I just want to take a break to just remind you about this podcast and how I record it. If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast everywhere. Seriously. On Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Again, that's anchor.fm to get started or download the Anchor app.
Welcome to the Divorce Diaries podcast. One man's anonymous and live account of if he should get a divorce or stay married. He's been cheated on, and he's cheated. Protecting the innocent with changed voice patterns, the omission of names, ages, and genders. His authentic journey and account of the daily events of his marriage are helping him sort out his feelings and not get lost in the ups or the downs. New episodes are released daily. Welcome to the Divorce Diaries podcast. Entire seasons are released on Patreon weeks before anywhere else at Divorce Diaries Podcast Patreon page. Link in description. Now for today's episode.
Welcome to the rebooted Divorce Diaries podcast, where I definitely go into very calm, somber realizations that I'm having as I'm going through my divorce. Last night was Monday Night Football, and sometimes you don't realize. It's not sometimes you don't realize. There are many things that you do and many habits that grow and form and are built when you are in a long-term relationship like mine with my wife. And she's definitely more of the football fanatic than I am. She loves football and she's really into it. She's really pumped. She really roots for a team. And it was one of those things that we definitely did bond over. And in this podcast episode, I guess I'm just going to go through one of those times where I, and maybe you also, want very much to get back those things that will be missing. And I have to say that I made what I now understand to be a mistake. As I'm sitting there, because I decided to throw on my jersey, and we're not living together, and I went out to the closest sports bar to my new place, and I sat down alone, and I just started to watch the game. And, in the past, I would just look to my left, either on the couch or in the bed, and I would say, whoa, did you see that hit? I would grab the remote, rewind on the DVR. Hey, did you see that? Wow, we talk, we bond about everything that was happening on the field. And she was there. There was literally another 98.6 degrees in the bed or on the couch next to me. And I could feel her warmth, and I could feel her presence. I could feel her body, and I could talk to her. And not having that person there was hard for me yesterday. I miss my wife, and there are lots of times that I do miss her. So I went back and forth a lot. I wanted to send her a message. I wanted to tell her that I love her, and I do that all the time. And finally, at about 8:51 last night, I sent her a text, and I said, I'm sorry for what I did. I really miss Monday Night Football with you. I'm sorry for putting us here. Good night. Because I know that I've done things along the way. There's no divorce that happens where both people didn't do something. Or didn't do something, did do something or didn't do something. There's blame to go around. Now, there could be one person that is more to blame than the other. I guess that's just a fair and true statement to make. It's not really an opinion. And I'm not saying that my wife did more or less than I did. I mean, if you'd hear her tell it, that one thing that you did at the end there, that's the thing that made us. No, if you listen to my angry rants that I recorded in my initial launch of the Divorce Diaries podcast, I mean, there were like 10 seasons, and if I put them back up, they'll be on Patreon, because I want to put that up there just in case there's anyone that wants to see if they were just as angry and had displaced perspectives and maybe was playing the blame game like I was a little bit and not being quite as accountable. I mean, even though I didn't lie about anything in any of those, I still wasn't coming from a place of I'm going to be a part of the solution. Solely part of the solution. I had a doctrine initially in my marriage that eventually went away. My doctrine initially in my marriage was I will always give 100%. And both people should do that, because that would make 100 plus 100 is 200%. If ever one person is able to only put in half, that takes the one person, keeps the one person at 100% and takes the other person down to 50. You guys have 150% of the effort going into the relationship at all times. And yes, that's not necessarily always sustainable, but that's 50% higher than 100%. Even if both people can't give their all, and one person can only give 50% positive effort and the other person 50% positive effort, you're down at 100%. Okay. And that's pretty good. And if both people can only give 30%, man, you're at 60% total, and that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for you guys to solve problems, work through things, to have anything to really provide the other person, because we've got to be honest, in marriage, you've got to serve the other person up with something. You got to give them something. They need something. They need affection. They need validation. They need sex. They need to be listened to. They need to be supported. They need to be loved. They need to know that they're loved, even if they don't feel that they're loved by you because of something that they did. They need to be secure in the fact that if something bad were to happen, or if you were to make a mistake, you won't be done with them, or you won't trade them in. They need to feel some measure of whatever they feel security is. And my perspective from each person giving 100%, it went away. And my perspective moved very, very cleanly to, you know what, I'm not going to put in, I guess somewhere along the line, I'm sure it was probably after a time that my wife told me certain things, or she did certain things, and then I used that as my fuel to say, well, fine, if this is how you're going to be, then I'm going to be this way. So I basically did what I've heard coined as, I got in the mud and rolled around with the person. Just because they were behaving badly did not give me the right to behave badly. Or just because they responded to my bad behavior didn't give me a right to get upset and lash out by doubling down and behaving even more badly, because I felt like she behaved badly. The tit for tat thing in marriage is really, really, really should stop. It's really unhealthy, and it was really unhealthy for me in my marriage. And just full disclosure, I behaved badly. I did tit for tat things, or I developed resentment. I didn't try to seek help when we maybe should have. I maybe didn't push a lot. Now, that doesn't take away the fact that my wife and I, in my personal opinion, looking at us and looking at everything that she has done over the years and every way that she's responded to the things I have done over the years, because this is my diary. I'm not I've already said that I've behaved badly and I've done things that I shouldn't have. But the things that she's chosen to do and the way that she's chosen to respond to different events, things, and circumstances tells me that she and I aren't good for each other. We have two different moral codes, sets of values, ideals, and philosophies for how we'll live our lives. We're just two different people. And I could sum it up with the whole one's a spender, one's a saver. Now, that doesn't make the saver better, and that's me. I'm the saver. But just because I'm the saver doesn't make me better, because if I, in fact, save too much, if I, in fact, save too much, then, sorry, almost an accident. If I save too much, then what will we ever spend? Seriously, that doesn't make for an enjoyable marriage. We've got to let something go out the door. Got to go on some vacations. And what's worse is, if you have the money, funds, and finances, and you're still trying to save every dime, then it becomes an uncomfortable relationship. It becomes sort of hurtful and harmful, and the spender is always just asking, or the spender is spending behind the back of the saver, or the spender is getting more debt. It's a really tough situation to be in as the spender when you're with a overt saver like me, or like I was. But now, conversely, the saver will just want to save more if they feel that the spender is spending in excess. So it's an ideal difference. It's a way to morally live your financial lives that just fundamentally differs. And if the saver can't compromise and learn to spend where appropriate, or become a little bit more comfortable spending, then there's no attempt to even meet in the middle from the saver's point of view. And if the spender doesn't want to save something, there's no compromising or meeting in the middle from their perspective. And that really, really sucks for the saver, because that's just going to make them double, triple, quadruple down. So we've had a lot of those problems over the years, and that still doesn't mean that I didn't miss my wife last night while I was watching Monday Night Football. I missed her. And I sent her that text. She responded very angrily the next morning. She doesn't want to ever talk to me again unless it's about our children, because of the thing that I did at the very end. And I understand that. I'm not really going to engage with her any further, because I understand now that my wife is the type of person that will excuse their own bad behavior because of something that they feel significantly hurt them. And that's a perfectly acceptable way to go through life. You know, like if there's infidelity and the other person physically abused someone, the person that was physically abused will say, hey, you know, in their estimation, I may have cheated on you, but I didn't put my hands on you. Okay, then that sort of finishes that argument in that person's mind, because they've put the sin on a scale. They've scaled the sin. Your sin is worse than my sin, so done. Even if, let's say, which doesn't make physical solutions, there's no place for a physical solution within a long-term marriage relationship between a man and a woman, or anyone. There is no place for physical interaction, violence, abuse. No place for it. Now, if there was some physical provocation to the physical response, okay, what do? How do you evaluate the Chris Brown Rihanna situation if your truth is Chris Brown beat her up? Versus, how do you look at the Chris Brown situation if Rihanna hit him and then Chris Brown, quote unquote, beat her up? You're forced to make a decision that looks probably something like this. And I don't think it makes you right or wrong on either side. I'm not the arbiter of that. She shouldn't have hit him. Okay, that's one thing you could say. You could say he shouldn't have beat her up no matter what. And maybe, I guess, if you reach, there's a third. Well, when there's a fight between two people and one person is physically bigger, faster, stronger, superior to the other, it's going to look a lot worse on the other person. You could look at it like that, I guess, as well. Again, there's no place for physical abuse, violence, or communication with people in romantic relationships. There's no place for it. If there is something like that where you feel yourself getting to that place, you really need to understand, whoa, I'm not in a relationship that's healthy enough where communication, the only acceptable forms of communication, verbal, is appropriate. We can't even verbally speak, and I'm getting so angry that I don't want to use my words anymore, or you're doing things that are making me not want to use my words anymore. Definitely have to be mature enough to get yourself out of that situation and call it what it is. The communication has devolved to such a place where there is no point in being around or talking to this person again. We can't even talk. So when you get there, you've got to know it's done. So even when I'm sitting there missing my wife, because I'm missing the good times, and usually when you're in the midst of those good times that you shared with those habits that you built, you're missing all those things. And while you're missing them, you're forgetting all of the bad stuff. And the ugly stuff, it gets a veil. The ugly stuff gets a veil of maybe we can get that back. But I don't want it back. I will gladly, now that I've accepted, I've fully accepted my wife. I've fully accepted the emotional and verbal and mental abuse that I've suffered. There wasn't much physical, but sometimes you don't realize the mental abuse that both you inflict and are inflicted on you when you're in a toxic relationship. And I have to be honest fully, I didn't vet any reasons why my wife and I should get married. I never did. I ascribed them. We're going to make a family together. We love each other. Those things are both true. We didn't want our kids to be raised in broken homes. That's true. We were raised in broken homes. We didn't want that. That was true. So on the basis of all of that, our moral codes matched up. And I acted like a young man along the way a lot of times during breakups. And I don't know what the rules are. Okay, you break up with someone. 8 seconds later, do you get with someone else? 8 years later, do you get with someone else? Or open yourself up to getting with someone else? I don't know. I don't know what those rules are. I don't know what they should be. I know that when someone is on the receiving end of their ex getting on with someone else, I can't believe you moved on so quickly, is what they might say. But if they're on the offending end of meeting someone, they'll say, well, how long was it? How long did you expect me to wait? We were done, and we were done. And I've been on both of those sides. It was always odd because I was on both of those sides when, after the other person said that, no, when we're on a break, it's done and we can be with someone else. And then when I did it, it's like, how long were you talking? It must have been fast. Wait, I'm lost. Is it we can do it when we... So those are a little bit of mental or emotional abusive things that happened, over the years. Because just honestly speaking, that is what I think is traditionally defined as a double standard. And then I would make things worse by saying, well, I guess you are right. I mean, going back to how I felt, I do wish you hadn't moved on so quickly, or I wished you didn't date that guy behind my back. But two wrongs don't make a right. You're right. Maybe I shouldn't have moved on so quickly, or maybe I shouldn't have talked to that person months later. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. I didn't realize that I was just giving energy to that double standard. And I was actually setting a precedent for that double standard. It was just terrible. It was terrible. We were just in a toxic relationship, sort of from the beginning, and we had bumps and bruises. And I guess when I made my decisions to just, well, I'll stop giving 100 unless she's giving 100, that just exacerbated things. And that really did. It made me a bad husband because I made an active choice to take those vows and just like kind of throw them out of the window because it wasn't that whatever it's called, agape love, like eternal and unfading and unwavering love no matter what. I went from loving no matter what to loving conditionally, and that just really screwed up my marriage with my wife. It just really did. Because I would say, I mean, I'm not going to say she always loved conditionally. I'm not going to say that. I'm saying that she loved conditionally in different ways, and I loved conditionally in different ways at different times. So she and I were operating at one hell of a deficit very, very often. And couple that with our poor communication, man, I wish I could go back and sort of make those things better. And I definitely am sorry to her for what I did and how I stopped putting in 100%, regardless of what she was putting in. So yeah, I missed her last night, Monday Night Football. I missed her. I missed her a lot. Just got to get through it, I guess, right? There will be more Monday Night Football games. And you will miss her again. And it hurts. And maybe it won't ever stop hurting.
Wow. That was the Divorce Diaries podcast. The Daily Saga will continue tomorrow. The full season's episodes are on Patreon now. Subscribe for early access. Click the Patreon link in the description. Hopefully, these entries help our anonymous recorder as a form of his own personal therapy. That's his hope and his intention. Will these recordings of life's curveballs lead this family to the best resolution in the end? We'll keep listening. New episodes are released daily on all podcast players, but all episodes are available on Patreon at Divorce Diaries Podcast Patreon page. Until next time.